Okay, so let's talk about going extra miles and some of the scenarios. So let me present on the screen some of the scenarios. So scenario one, and again, some of the text is hidden a little bit below the video, so I'll read it, and then you can also read it below the video. So 50-hour project. You have been working on a project for a while and have collectively put in about 50 hours of work for the project. Your supervisor asks you to complete A, B, and C. You put in enough time, feel like you completed all 3 tasks. After taking a lesson on over-delivering, you start thinking about the question, what more can I do to add more value? And you come up with at least 2 other tasks that you think can make a meaningful difference. You look into these tasks where one task would take you more than 10 hours and another task that would take you 30 more hours. Which task should you do? How would you prioritize your time? So go ahead and pause this video. I like this scenario and the questions. It's very real. What would you do? Go ahead and pause the video, write down your answers, and let's compare. Okay. Which task should you do? It's kind of a trick question. Should you do task A? Should you do task B? Should you do both? It all depends. And how do you know task A and B are, or these 2 additional tasks are things that the supervisor wants you to work on? What if you work on it and the supervisor says, why did you waste 40 hours looking into these 2 other tasks that I never told you to explore? You're wasting everyone's time. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. So how do you navigate through this situation so you're not overstepping the boundaries, but you still want to over-deliver and do good things? Well, I intentionally made the scenario this because if you could do these two other tasks by putting in another 5 to 10 hours, I would say just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. And then when you present, say, hey, boss, I know you asked me to do task A, B, and C. So let's say this is the presentation. So I've done A, B, and C. And you give a report. And at the end of the presentation, you say, boss, I started thinking about what are some additional things that you might be interested in, or that the team may find helpful that wasn't included in the original instruction. But hey, look, it wasn't going to take that much time for me to gather these additional data, so I decided to put some of these slides to cover about A, B, and C. Again, I didn't put that much time because I already put in quite a bit of time into these other areas that you laid out. So I just did it on the extra time that I put in to get some of these data. So then you present those 2 tasks or 2 insights. Makes everyone feel good. One, you didn't sacrifice all the other tasks. You just did things on top of what you were already assigned, so that puts you in a good perspective for the supervisor and the team. But also you didn't have to go back and forth on your communication with your supervisor and waste their time. You just did it, which is good. But this scenario is where you have to put in a lot more time. Remember, you put in 50 hours already into the project. This would make it 90, right? In that case, because it's a lengthy one, maybe you can make a judgment whether you want to do the 10-hour task. But definitely before proceeding with the second task, I would say follow up with your supervisor. Say, hey, I'm done with that project. I thought it would be interesting to look into this another data set or this insight. What do you think? Would it be helpful? Right? So you get the supervisor's input, and the supervisor's like, yeah, that would be amazing, then do it. If the supervisor says, and you let them know, yeah, I can get this data, but it would take me about 30 hours of additional work. Not sure, it's a lot more time, not sure whether this is important, but if this is important for you, let me know, and I will gladly spend that 20, 30 hours to get that additional data in preparation for the meeting that we have on Tuesday. What a great communication, right? Then you don't fall into that danger of you did all that work and the supervisor is like, why in the world did you put in that time? I never told you to do that 2 additional tasks. Why did you go against my command? Right? Because you already got their pre-buy-in before that meeting, right? And when you present, your supervisor is going to be happy because you kept the supervisor fully in the loop. You were considerate of their time. Okay? All right, scenario 2. Managing a team. You have a team you're managing. Your client has been a great client. You have a strong relationship. Um, Client's reasonable in terms of the work expectations and the workload. Um, what would an A player think in this scenario? What would B player think in this scenario? Yeah, I think this is a pretty simple one. What do you think? B players would be satisfied with the status quo. A players are always thinking, what can I do more to serve my customers? That simple question is very important. B players think, what was I asked to do? A players, what was I asked to do and what can I do to add more value? More value means you should at least deliver the value that they're expecting, but over deliver more, which means over delivering, right? Okay, high expectation scenario three. You're managing a team. Together with your team, you have done wonderful things. You're super proud of your team, but your supervisor doesn't seem to be excited about your team's performance. You're puzzled for a while until one day you approach a supervisor and you had a good heart-to-heart talk. You found out that your supervisor has such a high expectation for you, partly because you always promised a lot of great things for the supervisor from the very beginning. You're able to deliver mostly, but sometimes some of the tasks were not delivered exactly on time or up to the specs required. So 90% of your work were good enough, and no other team could have done what your team could have done. So anyway, you're feeling a little bit weird. Your team is going extra miles. You feel a little undervalued, underappreciated. You're doing all these things. You're adding tremendous value, but your supervisor is not really appreciating you. What do you do in this situation? Well, if it was me, I would say maybe you had the supervisor expect too much and ask yourself, what did you do? Or if I was in that situation, what have I done to contribute to this problem? Did I overpromise to my supervisor? Could I have been more prompt? Am I overpromising on the delivery? Am I missing the deadline? So I deliver high quality results, but I don't deliver things on time. And maybe that's an issue. Maybe I assume that high quality work is more important than work that was delivered promptly, right? You might be wrong. Your supervisor may think otherwise, that being timely is more important, even if the work is not quite done, to be able to deliver on time promptly. So anyway, I think this heart-to-heart conversation happened too late. It would have been better to have that conversation earlier and say, hey, let's talk about my performance here. A few months later, after initially working with the supervisor, hey, I've been working really hard. I feel good about work. I feel good about the projects. Can I get 10 minutes of your time to get some feedback on what could I do better to better serve your needs, better serve the team's need? I would love to get some feedback. And you schedule a 10-minute meeting. If you had that 10-minute meeting with the supervisor, one, the supervisor rarely gets emails like that where they're soliciting feedback. But second, you proactively went after them and you're sinking that expectation. You're not assuming what you think is important for the supervisor. You're confirming with the supervisor those core values that are important for them. And you sync, right? That shows love and compassion for each other. You're being considerate. That's an effective working relationship. You never just assume what you think is important for the supervisor. You should confirm and get feedback and have that one-on-one conversation. Not all the time. You don't want to be labeled as a person that needs to have that emotional talk with someone every week or every month. That's too much. But once every few months, especially in the beginning, I think it's very healthy to say, hey, it's been about 3 months or 6 months since we worked together. I would love to get your genuine feedback on how I'm doing, what I can do better. I value your perspective. I value your opinion. I would love to get your thoughts on how I can be a better member of your team. And would love to have 15, would you have 10 minutes to share your thoughts with me when you're ready? Great email opens up that dialogue. where you're really working together effectively as a team.